Hey everyone, before we dive in, please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Elena Carter, and I'm 30 years old. Not long ago, I heard something I never imagined my own father saying I was too embarrassing to be seen with my brother's new in-laws. I remember the morning so clearly, the sunlight just catching the rim of my coffee mug in the hallway when his voice boomed from the living room, sharp and unfiltered. Your brother's in-laws are high society. You'll humiliate us. Do you understand, Elena? His words hit me like a slap colder than any winter wind. The way he said it, not like he was talking to his daughter, but like I was a problem to be managed, a storm to be avoided. See, my brother Liam had just gotten engaged to someone whose life looked like pure sparkle on magazine covers. A luxury world heiress with events in penthouses and charity galas before breakfast. Suddenly, my messy tech consultant life in Denver, the way I laughed too loud or asked too many questions, was a liability, not a sister. They didn't care that I spend nights untangling marketing data to save boutique hotels from collapse. To them, I was the awkward girl who didn't know which fork to use and asked uncomfortable questions no one wanted to answer. So while Liam and his fiancée packed suitcases of sequins and designer dresses for a New Year's Eve celebration at a fancy resort, I was told to stay home and keep things simple. They didn't want me at the party. They didn't want me near their so-called elite crew. And they definitely didn't want anyone knowing I belonged to the family at all. But what they didn't know was this. Those same elite in-laws, the very people they were so desperate to impress, had secretly been relying on my analytics work for months under a different name. They trusted my numbers to save their business. And on the very night they tried to erase me, they ended up staring at a framed photo of me, recognizing my face and screaming my name in front of everyone. Have you ever been treated like the family embarrassment, only to realize you were the one holding all the cards? Stay with me, because how this night flipped from humiliation to payback is something you'll want to hear until the very end. Let me know right now, have you ever been dismissed or underestimated by people who should have loved you? Drop a comment with a yes or no. If yes, tell me what happened. Even one word is powerful. I read every single one. In part 2, you'll hear about how I became the person no one expected, the quiet outsider with a gift no one understood, until it became the very reason the elite were begging for my help. You won't believe how I transformed from awkward sister to someone the richest people in the room couldn't ignore. I didn't grow up thinking I was embarrassing. I just thought I was different. At family barbecues, while the other kids were running through sprinklers and wiping ketchup on their shirts, I was sitting at a folding table counting how many hot dogs Uncle Rick ate, and wondering why Aunt Kelsey always showed up late and left early. That's who I was. Curious. Intense. Analytical. I remember being 8 years old and asking my dad, "Why do you say we're fine with money if mom works 2 jobs and hides the credit card bills?" He laughed at first. But after that, the adults stopped inviting me into conversations. My parents, Thomas and Denise Carter, started pulling me aside after family events. Their tone wasn't angry. It was worse. Tired. Ashamed. "Elena," they'd whisper. "Can you just be normal? Smile. Compliment someone's earrings. Don't bring up budgets at dinner." Meanwhile, Liam, my older brother, was the golden boy. He knew how to charm a room like he was born in a tuxedo. He could spot an expensive watch and compliment it with just the right mix of admiration and aspiration. I watched him float through events like he was born for them. And me? At Liam's high school graduation dinner, I asked the waiter if he thought the tipping system was fair. And then I accidentally elbowed a tray of marinara sauce, which splashed all over some politician's wife's white Chanel dress. The room went silent. My mother's face? Crimson. My father grabbed my wrist so tightly I winced. "This," he hissed, "is why you don't belong in places like this." After that, I stopped trying to belong at their kind of dinner table. I turned inward. I turned to numbers. Spreadsheets made sense. Equations didn't judge me. Data was honest. People weren't. In high school, while my classmates were trying to sneak into parties, I was sneaking into online forums to learn how to build pricing models. In college, I wasn't drinking at tailgates. I was consulting for a tiny lakeside B&B whose website was bleeding money. I studied business analytics and computer science not because it was flashy but because the math, the patterns, they calmed me. I loved taking chaos and turning it into clarity. But back home? None of that mattered. When I told my mom I landed my first real client, she smiled politely and said, "Oh, so you're still doing that online thing?" My dad barely looked up. "Temporary," he muttered. "She'll get a real job eventually." Liam? He walked into a law firm straight after college, and my parents introduced him to everyone like he was the second coming of Wall Street. "Our future partner in Dallas," they'd beam. Meanwhile, I'd show up to family dinners after 12-hour days running pricing tests for 3 hotels, and Mom would glance at my jeans and whisper, "Could you at least pretend you don't work from your bedroom?" Eventually, something broke. Or maybe something clicked. If they were never going to see my value in the room, I'd stop asking for a seat at their table. I built my own. I registered my business under Carter metrics. I started saying no to dinner parties where I'd be ignored or laughed at. I stopped trying to make them proud. And while they were busy polishing Liam's image for some rich girl's family, I was learning something powerful in silence. In the right hands, numbers can save empires. And soon those very empires were about to come knocking. Drop a comment if you've ever been told you're too much, too intense, too different. Tell me, did you bury it? Or did you build something with it? Your words matter here. Don't hold back. In part 3, you'll find out how I got the call that changed everything. How a crumbling luxury resort chain begged me to fix what a $1 million agency couldn't. And how the man on the other end of the phone unknowingly handed me the key to a future my family never saw coming. You don't want to miss how this puzzle started to twist. It was a sweaty Tuesday in Denver. The kind where your t-shirt sticks to your back before noon. I was halfway asleep over a sea of spreadsheet tabs, trying to fix a forecasting model that refused to behave. That's when the email popped up. Subject line: Urgent mid-size resort chain in trouble. Can you help? I sat up, blinked, and read it again. It came from a tiny agency I'd freelanced for once. Frantic, messy, the kind of message that screamed last hope. One of their biggest clients was bleeding bookings after the pandemic, and no one could figure out why. They needed someone who could do more than make pretty charts. Someone who could pull answers from chaos. The client? Harrington and Vail Resorts. At that point, it was just a name and an attachment. A logo. File. But a few hours later, my phone rang. A deep, calm voice came through the speaker, tired but in control. "This is Graham Harrington. We were told you can pull numbers out of the fire." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I can try," I said, sitting a little straighter. "No camera," he added. "Connection's bad. Let's keep this audio." Thank God. I wasn't wearing real pants. For the next hour, he laid it out. Their luxury resorts, flagship locations, were half empty. Their competitors were eating them alive. Their marketing agency had blown through 7 figures with nothing but glossy failure. "We need someone who understands real data," he said. "Not just pitch decks. Can you dive in, tell us what's broken, and fix it?" I should have been nervous. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity, purpose, power. This was just another puzzle. A much bigger one. But my kind of puzzle. I asked for access to everything: booking systems, ad platforms, web analytics. And when I got it, I didn't sleep for 36 hours. Their problems were worse than I thought. Their prices were static in a market that had turned fluid. Their ads were targeting retired couples in cities where no one even knew the brand. Their website checkout was so buggy on mobile I wanted to scream. But oh, I was in heaven. I mapped demand curves. I built predictive pricing tied to search trends. I tested every checkout path. I slashed their ad spend in half and rerouted the budget to real audiences. Families, remote workers, people looking for weekend escapes, not influencers chasing hashtags. It was riskier than anything they'd done. I told Graham that. I told him they might hate the changes at first. He paused, then said 6 words that changed everything. "If your numbers are right, do it." And I did. In the first month, the graphs budged. In the second, they bent upward so hard I actually gasped. Bookings surged. Revenue followed. Graham stopped getting screamed at in board meetings. One night, close to midnight, my phone rang again. It was him. "You have no idea what you've done for us," he said, his voice lighter than I'd ever heard it. "We're putting together a wall of case studies at the main resort. We want your face on it." I laughed out loud, the kind of shocked, awkward laugh that escapes before you can stop it. "Me? On a wall? He was serious. He asked for a headshot. I hesitated, but I sent it. A week later, I opened the mock-up file. And there I was. My face. In a gold frame. Beneath it, a title, Elena Carter, Data and Growth Strategist. I sat there, hand over my mouth, tears I didn't expect welling up. To me, it was just another win. But what I didn't know was that the same company I just helped save would soon host a lavish New Year's Eve gala. And that night would not only feature my work, it would become the night my entire family's lies unraveled. Have you ever succeeded in silence while others doubted you out loud? Drop a fire in the comments if you've ever built something powerful behind closed doors. Or tell me, what's something you've done that no one gave you credit for? In part 4, you'll hear what happened when my brother Liam called me with the big announcement, how he dropped a name that stopped me cold, and how my own parents made the cruelest decision of all. They thought they were protecting their image. They didn't realize they were cutting off the very person their new in-laws had already framed in gold. You're not going to want to miss this turn. It was 3 months after the turnaround at Harrington and Vale. My brother Liam called, sounding like he just won the lottery. "Hey," he said, grinning through the phone. "You free for coffee? I've got big news." We met at this sleek little cafe downtown. Concrete walls, glass everything, the kind of place where espresso costs more than dinner. He walked in wearing a suit, on a Saturday, like he was afraid someone might forget he was important. He didn't even sit down before dropping it on me. "I'm engaged." I blinked. "To Layla Harrington." I froze. My heart did this weird little glitch. Harrington. As in the same Harrington from Harrington and Vale? The resorts. I asked, too careful. He nodded, beaming like a man who just unlocked a new tax bracket. "Yeah. Her family owns the whole empire. Resorts, villas, global everything. They host these insane galas, political fundraisers. Dad's losing his mind. In a good way." I sat there, stirring my coffee, my mouth suddenly dry. I had spent months buried inside their systems, the analytics, the strategy, rebuilding what Layla's family thought was crumbling. And now my brother was marrying into it. "I'm happy for you," I said, smiling through the ache. He went on about the proposal, the ring, the way Mom cried. Of course they were over the moon. This was the dream. The ascension. One of us finally made it into the world they always worshipped from the outside. Then his tone changed. "There's going to be a New Year's Eve engagement party," he said, tracing the rim of his cup like it might help him land the words softly. "It's big. Her family's hosting it at one of their flagship resorts." I nodded slowly. "Okay." He cleared his throat. "Elena, I think it's better if you don't come." I felt it like a punch. Right between the ribs. "It's a really specific crowd," he said. "Her parents, donors, politicians. People who expect a certain vibe." I stared at him. "You mean people like the ones I've spent the past year working for?" He looked down. "You know how you get in those settings. The questions. The intensity. Dad thinks it might be too much." "Too much for me?" I asked. "Or too embarrassing for you?" He winced. That was enough of an answer. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything. After saving their precious in-laws' entire business from collapse, I wasn't fit to attend the party. "You don't get it," he said. "This is our one shot to make a good impression. Layla's family is elite, Elena. We can't risk messing it up." So that was it. I wasn't just uninvited. I was a threat. Not because I was rude or unkind, but because I didn't fit the polished fantasy they were trying to sell. When I got home, I didn't even take my coat off. I walked in and there they were, my parents, sitting in the living room, voices low and panicked. "Your brother's in-laws are top tier," Dad said. "We can't risk Elena going off on someone about tax structures or hotel budgets. She'll humiliate us." "She doesn't mean to," Mom whispered. "But this is Liam's big chance. We can't let her ruin it." I stood in the hallway, completely still. My coffee went cold in my hand. Upstairs, my laptop screen still glowed with data from Harrington and Vale. Performance reports, strategy dashboards, projections. Numbers that had given their precious empire a second chance. I was already inside their world. They just didn't know it. And now they wanted to hide me from it. Let me ask you something. Has anyone ever tried to erase you from your own story? To make you feel like the problem? Just because you didn't fit their version of perfect? Tell me in the comments. I want to know because that kind of betrayal hits different, and if you felt it, I see you. New Year's Eve arrived faster than I expected. The house buzzed with excitement. Flights, gifts, outfits. Liam sent me a photo of the invitation. Gold foil velvet backing, a crest I'd recognize anywhere. Wish you could come, he texted. As if I'd chosen this. That morning I stood on the porch and waved as my parents left for the airport. My mom wore a brand new dress she couldn't afford. My dad adjusted a tie from a clearance rack and called it designer. They smiled at me from the Uber like they were leaving behind the family dog. The good daughter. The obedient one. The one who stayed home. That night I sat on my couch, watching Denver light up with rooftop fireworks. I picked at lukewarm takeout while my phone kept lighting up with videos. Chandeliers, champagne towers, orchestras. Layla looked like a goddess in silver. In one clip I heard my father laughing, telling someone, "That's my son. He's marrying into the Harrington family." I shut the phone off. And I opened a different window. The Harrington dashboard. Live booking data. Revenue streams. Projections. My numbers. My fingerprints. That night, while they posed for pictures and toasted their way into a glittering new world, they had no idea. The foundation of it all had my name on it. And soon everyone in that room was going to know. In part 5, the finale, you'll witness the exact moment the truth exploded into that ballroom. You'll hear what happened when my name was announced in front of my entire family, how the elite in-laws they worshipped looked at me with awe, and how my parents finally realized the only embarrassment was how small they had made me feel. The revenge wasn't planned, but oh, it was poetic. Trust me, you don't want to miss how it ends. The Harrington flagship in Miami was the kind of place my parents used to dream about while flipping through glossy magazines in dentist offices. White marble floors. Grand staircases. Chandeliers the size of minivans. Floral arrangements that probably had their own line item on the resort's budget. The night of the gala, the air felt expensive. Every movement was choreographed, servers in sharp uniforms gliding through the room like dancers. Guests in black tie attire. Champagne flutes and rehearsed laughter. I arrived early, not as a guest, as a strategic partner. At check-in, a coordinator handed me a name badge. Crisp lettering. Elena Carter, data and growth strategist. I stared at it for a second too long, my fingers trembling slightly. No one here saw me as the weird daughter or the embarrassing sister. They saw impact. Inside the main lobby, one wall had been transformed into something that took my breath away. A golden display lined with framed case studies, spotlights gently illuminating each one. And near the center, there I was. My face in a gold frame. Confident. Poised. Real. The plaque read, Elena Carter led the digital transformation strategy responsible for restoring profitability during a critical downturn. I stood still, afraid to blink. Then Graham Harrington appeared beside me with his wife Celeste. He smiled like I was the guest of honor. They introduced me to department heads, board members, even someone from Forbes. For the first hour I felt seen. Not tolerated. Not humored. Respected. Then I heard it. My mother's voice. Floating in from the lobby, half whisper, half awe. "Ethan, look at that chandelier." They had arrived. I turned slowly. My father looked like he'd tried too hard. Suit slightly wrinkled, tie crooked. My mother clutched her handbag like it was her last ounce of control. Liam walked ahead with Layla, his arm curled around her waist like an accessory. They were glowing. Until Celeste raised her champagne glass and gently tapped it with a spoon. Clink, clink, clink. The room turned toward her. Conversation dipped into hush. "Tonight," she said warmly, "is about celebration. About family, about partnerships, and about the brilliant minds who stood with us when this company faced its biggest storm." She gestured toward the wall. "This wall is not just decoration," she continued. "It's a tribute. Each face you see here represents someone who changed the course of our company's future." She walked slowly toward my frame. "One of those people is not just a partner but now family. Someone who worked behind the scenes for months. Who saved this brand when others couldn't." She pointed directly at me. "This is Elena Carter, the strategist behind the turnaround we've been celebrating all year." My father's face went pale. My mother's jaw slackened, mouth slightly open. like someone had unplugged her. I heard someone whisper, "Isn't that?" Then Celeste scanned the crowd, found me, and beamed. "Elena! There you are." Her voice rang through the ballroom. "You're Ethan's sister?" Every head turned. And then, like watching dominoes fall, the realization clicked across dozens of faces. That girl was me. Graham stepped beside Celeste. His smile faded into something sharper as he looked directly at my parents. "You never told us your daughter was our Elena," he said. Thomas tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. Denise blinked. "We didn't realize. She does something with computers." The silence that followed? Delicious. Graham's voice was calm, deadly calm. "Without her, this room would be empty." A laugh rippled through the crowd, polite but pointed. Celeste added softly, "We've been bragging about her for months. I can't imagine ever hiding someone like Elena." Liam finally turned. His eyes found mine. "You didn't tell me you were working with them," he whispered. I didn't blink. "You didn't ask." Later that night, my parents cornered me in the hallway outside the ballroom. My mother's voice was trembling. "You made us look like fools." I tilted my head. "I didn't make you do anything. You chose not to believe in me." "You should have told us," my father growled. "We would have prepared." "Prepared how?" I asked, my voice even. "By pretending you were proud this time? By dragging me along like a side character in Liam's fantasy?" Liam stepped in. "Come on, Elena. You're part of this family." And finally, I looked him in the eyes. "I will always be your sister. And their daughter. But I'm done begging to be seen. If being part of this family means shrinking myself to fit your narrative, I'm out." They just stood there, frozen. I walked back into the ballroom and took my place near my own frame. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for existing. I had nothing left to prove. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Graham introduced me on stage that night as the key partner in their future. And the applause? It wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It was real. People clapped not because they were related to me, but because they had seen what I built. They knew what I was worth. And as I stood under the warm spotlight, watching my parents try to blend into the wallpaper, I realized the truth. The glow-up isn't them finally accepting you. It's you no longer needing them to. So if your family has ever made you feel like the embarrassing one, the one who needs to be hidden so they can shine, just know, you are not the problem. You don't have to dim your brilliance to fit into their comfort zone. Shine. Anyway. And when your story finally unfolds, let it unfold in gold.